Well, it's so funny because Carlos says to this day, he said, that's the reason why I had to learn how to drive.
yeah, you're the inspiration.
You wouldn't have to be with me all the time.
Well, I had to buy new underwear. But man, I know Michael, outside of recording with Carlos, I know you recorded with the Rolling Stones too.
I mean, you don't ask the Rolling Stones,
right,
can I play my own stuff, right?
Welcome to another episode of the Backstage Show. I'm your host, Karl Perazzo. I am truly honored and humbled by the guest we have on our show today. Someone who has inspired me to no end. I spent hours listening to him and the band, jamming on albums that changed and pioneered the world of music. I'm talking about Rock and Roll Hall of Famer conguero, Michael Carabello. Michael is the original conga player with Santana for the first 3 albums. Santana, Abraxas, Santana 3, and Santana 4, which I had the pleasure and honor to record on. Please welcome my brother, Michael Carabello. Michael Carabello, thank you for being here, man. I appreciate it, man. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
True master and a true legend, man. Thank you.
Thank you
for honoring me with your presence. I'm so excited, man, because we have such a history together.
Right.
I can't tell you how important it is for me in terms of how the music you played and what you've done for music and through the music of Santana really influenced me to be the best that I can be. I tried immensely to mimic all your moves and solos of Chepito and I knew everybody's solos on the records that were fascinating, and so thank you for all your years of music, man. It's still going strong. Those records are.
Thank you.
You can't beat them, man.
Thank you, sir.
Right. And everybody knows what you've done and where you've been and how you've done it. But I want to get a little bit more closer to home. I want to know, what was your upbringing like? What part of the city did you live in? You're from San Francisco originally?
Originally from San Francisco, but my grandmother is from Ponce, and my grandfather was from Catitlan.
Wow.
And so I have a Spanish Puerto Rican background. I was raised in a place called Bayview, which they call Double Rock, which was by Hunters Point.
Oh, yeah.
And my grandmother had one of the first Puerto Rican families in San Francisco, because it goes way back to North Beach. She had a cafe on Grant Avenue back in the day. My mother was baptized at the Church of Guadalupe above the Broadway Tunnel. Mm-hmm. And then they somehow, I guess her and my grandfather met, and they moved to Bayview. And my grandmother had a chicken farm in Double Rock, and goats and the whole sham. And from being a little kid back then, I remember there was always guests at my grandma's house. Always guests. There was always cooking going on, and other stuff going on that we won't get into with the chickens.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
And I'll just say it, the Santero stuff and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But my grandmother always told me, don't go downstairs. Don't go downstairs to the room. And of course, I had to obey. And I would always hear drums downstairs, man. And I don't know what it was. I mean, I wasn't enlightened to that stuff yet or anything. But there was always Puerto Rican music being played, and like I said, a lot of families would come over and have dinner. Anybody who just came to San Francisco that was Puerto Rican, they were at my grandmother's house.
Sure.
So I would always hear music from them. After my grandma and grandfather passed away, my mom being single at that time, we moved to Sunnydale Projects.
Wow.
So I went from Bayview, Double Rock, Hunters Point to Sunnydale Projects.
Another tough area.
Another tough area. And my mother struggled. We struggled through life eating and stuff like that. We would get day-old bread from the stores that were there, and that's just what you did back then. I never looked at it as being poor or anything. There was always stuff there,
That's right.
But my mother met this wonderful man named John Barrero, who played guitar, and he was Puerto Rican and American Indian. And he lived in the Mission District. So we went from Sunnydale Project right to 21st and Bryant.
Okay.
You know, so, and this is very enlightening because there was no way that I was going to get out of the whole Puerto Rican mode. Being on 24th Street, Arcelio Garcia's mom owned a restaurant where all the Latin baseball players used to come for pasteles, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And stuff. So the music thing was always there, but I never realized that whole thing with pianos and drums like embedded in my head and my body and stuff. But I never liked it or anything. It was like it was nothing.
But it was inside you.
It was inside me,
it was,
like hiding, man.
Yeah, it was hiding inside.
I was into baseball, man. I was in, baseball was like my thing back then.
Now, Arcelio Garcia was the leader and one of the co-founders of the band Malo. And so Mike's saying that they all grew up together. That's great. You guys play baseball, though.
Pelly, his brother, and Arcelio were great baseball players. And like I said, they were raised by, oh my God, I go back to baseball players like Orlando, like the Olu brothers and Marichal. They all used to eat at his mom's restaurant, man. So talk about influence. And then I hung out at the San Francisco Boys Club, which was the Mission Branch Boys Club. Mm-hmm. And as a kid, would always go up to Seal Stadium and see the Seals play, and then the Giants came to town, and that's where Arcelio stepped in and stuff.
Yeah, great history.
But from there, my stepdad used to go fishing at Mission Rock, and I was still a little kid at the time, right? And he would take me with him sometimes, and they'd go out in a little boat on the bay there, and I would just be so scared.
Yeah.
I'd just be so scared and whatnot. Yeah. And that eventually led for him going fishing at Aquatic Park on Muni Pier.
Sure.
Right? So we're at Uni Pier, and we would get up pretty early in the morning and get there just before the sun came up. And I remember one day having to go to the bathroom, and I'm going like, where am I going to go to the bathroom? There's no bathrooms there.
You had to walk all the way back to
walk around, that pier, right?
Right.
And he said there's one at Aquatic Park under that building with the ship.
Right.
They had showers there for the swimmers.
Yeah. The Maritime
Museum there. You had Maritime and the Dolphin Club and whatnot, right? So I remember walking there, and I'm walking on there, and I'm hearing drums, and I'm going,
and that's
like,
a long walk.
Yeah, I'm hearing drums, and I'm going like, where's this? And I'm looking up on the balcony thing there, and I guess there were a bunch of beatniks playing, drinking wine and smoking pot, and just having a great time, man. And I remember the next time he said, what took you so long? I said, I was just in the bathroom, whatever.
Yeah.
And I got back there, and then he asked me again, do you want to come fishing with me? And I went, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because now I found something to do besides sit there and fish with him, right?
Yeah.
So I said, Dad, I got to go to the bathroom. Okay. And each time I went there and went fishing with him, I would stay longer and longer. And finally I figured out that, I kind of like this, hanging out with these beatniks and artists and whatnot. And I finally figured out how to go there by myself on the 47 Potrero.
Yeah, the Muni bus.
That was it. It's the dead end for the bus at that time was Ralph Park.
Oh wow!
And you go from Ralph Park to Aquatic Park, which was the other dead end.
That's right.
So I had a ride, and I borrowed a good friend of mine's conga drum. This guy named Pat McGuire, years ago, and I would start going there, and I remember painting my conga drum yellow. That was his. It wasn't mine. And putting in an O'Neill surf sticker on, with the surfer on it, O'Neill. Yeah. And then my friend says, I need my drum back. And I said, okay. And I bring it up to his house, man, and it's yellow. He goes, what'd you do to my drum, man? It looks like it. And I said, well, he said, man, how am I going to play this drum? I said, if you don't want it, you can give it to me.
Yeah.
So that was like my first drum. But a lot of that came from also as I got older, and I was going to Horseman, and then eventually went to Poly. There was a drum shop that was in a Tenderloin called Drumland. And outside, there's a big sign that says Drumland. On top of the sign was a conga drum that they would advertise, man.
Yeah.
Red conga drum. And I went like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And every chance I had, I would go there. Yeah. And I didn't have money to buy
the drum
one.
Shop, right?
Yeah, drum shop. And I guess
the drum shop for us was the equivalent to Manny's Music in New York.
Exactly.
And it was very important part of those stores that now they're big box stores, but those are mom and pop stores, right?
Right, back then.
I missed that store, but my dad used to talk about it.
Right.
And they actually had lessons there too.
Exactly, like Kenny Williams and John Ray.
Johnny Ray. Johnny Ray was a drummer, percussionist who played with Cow Jader.
Right.
And a lot of artists. Later became the the head guy with the union,
Right.
Local Six. But please continue with
Yeah.
those guys, man. Johnny Ray and all those. Did you buy another drum from there or?
I never bought a drum from there. I couldn't afford it. I mean, I was still a little kid, man. I must have been. God, I want to say 11 or 12. You know, but it was able to take the 25 Bryant and figure out how to get to Market Street.
Carrying the conga.
Carrying the conga, yeah, stuff like that. But a lot of influence. But that was the drum store. It was like the candy store for me, you know, kind of thing. And I remember going in there and looking at drumsticks and looking at traps and just going, one day.
Wow.
And then I would talk to Kenny, who was just a sweet man, you know. And he goes, "Oh, what are you going to look at today, Mike?"
Yeah.
You know, and I would go in there and look, and I'd hit the congas, man, which they had, I want to say, gone bops back then, man. And
back then, yeah, possibly, yeah.
yeah, gone bops and...
what year was that?
Oh, man, I can't even remember.
Okay.
Had to be the middle 60s, something like that. Because when we started the band, it was 67.
Yeah.
So it was before that.
They probably had La Playa in there too, La Playa congas.
La Playa. No, that was, that's the one you could afford because they were from Mexico.
That's right. No tuning.
No tuning.
Yeah, that was my first conga too.
Right.
Had to put it over the stove, you know.
I got a story about that too.
Yeah.
That we did. But very inspiring, and I remember being in there a couple of times, and Buddy Rich walks in one day. I don't know who that is.
Oh my!
Because all the drummers that played in the city at the hotels had to go there for the drum shop to get sticks or
that's right.
skins or because there was
pick up
no
supply.
other
There was
place.
no other place. Yeah.
I don't know who Buddy Rich is. You know, they sit down and they do a thing, and here's all these cymbals and drum heads signed, and I don't know who none of these people are until years later, you know. But Drumland was a big inspiration for me. So, getting back to our story about playing at Aquatic Park and stuff like that, I hung around a lot at Playland at the beach also, where all the surfers were and the guys from the avenues and whatnot, and that was the place that we would play also. When you were playing, there was a lot of stuff going on in Dolores Park.
That's right. I've said in many interviews, I used to carry my conga as well.
Yeah.
4 or 5 blocks up and down hills to go play at Dolores Park.
Yeah.
And speaking of Dolores, this was a great time to grow up in music, and music was at that time was absolutely rolling in San Francisco. You can hear anything on the radio, anything from right. That's right. Do you remember when and where we met?
Yes, I do. Bluntly.
Tell the viewers.
I was in rehab for a while and got out of hand on drugs and other things. And I remember just before we were going to graduate, there was a place called Casa La Cambio that was a drug center, rehab for stuff. And I was in there for about, I guess it must have been like a month. Most people had to stay in there for a good 3 months. About a month into it, I was like done with it. I had figured out, okay, well, you have to change friends. It's not about getting out of here and learning all this stuff. You have to change friends who you hang out with who did that.
Yeah.
So I remember the day, my friend Dan Silva, who was the director there, said, okay, well, it's time for us to take a walk and go around the neighborhood and whatnot. So the one day we were there, he said, well, let's go to Dolores Park. So we're up in Dolores Park, and I hear these congas, man, and I'm going like, wow, man, where's this coming from? I said, Dan, could I go down there? He said, sure. Just, I'm going to keep an eye on you. And I'm going, keep an eye on me. I'm listening to what I do, right?
Yeah.
And I remember sitting, looking there and watching, and hearing these conga players, man. And I look at this one person, which was you, and I said, hey, man, could I sit in and do this here? And he went, sure. Sat down and I started playing, man. And I hadn't played in months, And Karl,
could I interrupt you?
yes,
there?
you can. Yes, you can.
So, we had already been playing at the park. It was for hours. Like, hands were split open, bleeding, and that's just what we did, right? And this guy comes up to me, and I remember clearly. He said, "Man, is it okay if I, sit in and play a little bit?" And I didn't really even look at him. It was just, you're so in the moment, you're tired. The drums never stop.
Right.
So I just gave him the conga, and it was the quinto, and he starts to play, and it was like I knew exactly who you were when you started playing.
Wow.
And I turned really fast.
I remember.
I said, "Man, what's your name?"
And I think I said Michael, and you went, Carabello? And I went, yeah.
Totally rocked my world that Michael Carabello was sitting next to me. I couldn't tell you the importance of that day. And what I'm talking about is about if we rewind and we talk about the influences and me listening to him play, I knew that sound. I knew who it was before even the face, and his playing totally went into my psyche, man. That was the first day we met.
Yeah.
I was beside myself.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you said after that?
Yes, I did. I said, I'll be getting out of this rehab place soon, and
Graduating.
I'm graduating, right? And would you play at my graduation with me? And would you join? I'm putting a band together. Would you be so kind to be in the band? And you were like, yeah. And I go, can I get your phone number?
That's right.
Right. So I guess maybe after we did the graduation thing, because we played on 24th Street
Yeah,
at Centro de Cambio,
that's right.
right? Mm-hmm. And it was just me and you, wasn't it? Or was there somebody else that was playing with us? I think it was just me and you.
Yeah, it was both of us. And
Right.
but you called me and I wasn't home.
Right.
And I had those answer machines that had the cassette, And after the beep, I said, "Hey man, this is my Carabello, man, and I want to know if you're still interested in playing. I'm gonna be playing on this date." I kept that cassette. I removed. I kept that, and I kept that for years, man, because I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that, But we went on to play for a long time, and then actually I joined another band with you. It was Attitude.
Attitude, right. That was fun.
Oh, pretty little girl, dancing on the doorway, baby.
At that time, I was a little older, and I was really in the mix then.
Yeah. David was in the band. David Brown was in the band.
David Brown, that's right.
Mike Sasaki.
Tommy Banks.
Tommy Banks, the singer.
Yeah.
Right. Michael Sasaki.
Michael Sasaki, yeah.
Great band.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
And Angel Orozco.
Yeah.
On
the
drums.
Yeah.
I still have photos, and we'll bring up some photos of all that, man. That was a great time.
But Karl, not to interrupt or anything, but I remember seeing you when you were 8 years old playing with Tito, man. On the street, you and your brother, Gibby.
Yeah.
And going like, and every now and then you and your brother would show up playing with Cal Jade or somebody else. It's just a guest, man. And I'm going like, wow, man. And then we ran into each other. Then I recognized you were that same little kid that I used to see play.
Yeah.
Very impressive. I mean, impressive for me to see someone who just had it, And as well as I do, there's different signatures of musicians that when they play, they have a certain signature, and you come from a background of a lot of influence, like myself, but we always pick one or two people, and then you try to bring yourself to that table.
That's right. Mine was, obviously Tito Puente and you guys, obviously, on that side of the, on the rock side, and then on the Latin side of Puente, Mongo, Ray Barreto, Armando Perazas, and all that. And then we start getting kind of into probably where your influences are. And who was your influence?
My biggest influence, and oh God, I have this person's drums, who passed away some years ago. My biggest influence was Victor Pantoja. Victor Pantoja, because
One of the greats.
one of the greatest, and I just, I loved Mongo and I loved Batato, and I loved Ray Barretto and all those kind of people, but that sound just didn't come to me. When I heard Victor Pantoja play with Gabor Szabo, Chico Hamilton,
Right.
Ron Carter, and Willie Bobo, that
Yeah.
was it.
That's
Victor
right.
had a tone, man. He had just this tone that just went whoa, and I remember it distinctively because I used to get all the Gabor Szabo albums and all the Chico Hamilton albums, and the Vince Guaraldi albums. There's just a lot of influences at that time, and I remember having the bands being in the Bay Area that day, the Bro Brommels, Sly and the Family Stone. Everybody had like their thing, and there was no way I was going to play guitar or bass. I mean, it just wasn't. Wasn't there for me.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about even trying. It just looked complicated. But Victor Pantoja and another gentleman named Bill Fitch, who played with
Cal Jader.
Cal Jader on an album called Insight. And him and Victor, but Victor the most, there was just this different thing, and I think, and to this day, I always think of percussionists as tone, not the instrument. I think of the different tones like do, re, mi.
Yeah.
And you know this, Karl, because we've played a lot together. I tune my drums to do, re, mi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when I play, I sound like there's three guys playing.
Yeah, right.
And it's been a thing that I've learned from Victor.
Yeah.
Victor told me.
Yeah.
And and Victor passed away some years ago, and I got him in Santana. I stole him from Willie Bobo for a lot of different reasons or whatever. And me and Victor called him Pops all the time. He went on to play with Azteca and whatnot. But
I learned that he recorded with Malo.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That too. But we got him first.
Yeah.
I got him first. But and we stayed in touch over the years, and it's just his playing. And he's played with so many people, I can't even go on with the list who he's played with.
I know.
But man, the tone, you just know when it's Victor Pantoja.
So Willie went and played and did a show, went to Africa with them. So when he came back, they kept on me, and Carabello said, man, you got to play with me. You got to play with me. So he brought me up to San Francisco, and I played with Carlos. I started playing with Carlos. And then I played with Carlos for 3 years. We did some recordings and stuff, It was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing. But Carabello is one of my greatest sons, One of the greatest guys, man, So he calls me all the time right now, as it is, And I wish him the best, like always, And that's the story part of my life.
Him and Willie grew up together. And I could tell you some stories, man. I don't know if you know this or not. Willie Bobo was he studied ballet, man, as a kid. Isn't that funny? Is that funny? I mean, not too many people know that, but
he applied all that to the timbales,
to the timbales, man.
Because he had a flow that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a.
And then so before Victor passed away, he ended up giving me his drums. Man, I still have them to this day.
Wow, man,
Yeah.
that's.
Yeah.
Can I have them?
Nope. A few people have tried to buy them, and I went, can't do it, man.
I don't want to buy them. I want you to give them to me.
Yeah.
No, he's.
But all those, but the drums
he's
I
one of
have
the
are on.
maestros for
Yeah,
sure.
the drums I have are on all those albums, on all the Gabor albums.
Actually, you introduced me to Victor Pantoja at Bimbo's
Oh wow.
one night at the Voices of Latin Rock.
Oh wow.
At these concerts here.
Yeah.
You know, and I got to tell you, I know your this book right here has some really great photos of on the history of Latin rock through the Mission and the San Francisco area. It's great pictures of Carabello, man. There's some really cool pictures. And before we go, I really want you to sign.
Oh,
I mean, you can open this book and I don't care what page you're on it. I don't know how you look. I don't know how how you did it, but
Right.
I don't know if you paid the dude or what.
No. I just, it's funny because, I've heard that from other people too, but I used to save everything.
I remember that.
I mean, there you go. Wow.
Yeah. Mike Carabello, man. You got to do me a favor, man. Please sign this for
I
me,
will.
man.
Before this is over, we'll
No,
sign
no,
it.
right now, man. Right now. Do it right now, because I don't
gotta
so
pay
you're
me.
gonna forget.
You gotta
I'll
pay
pay you
me.
later. I'll pay you later, man.
I'm kidding.
You know.
I'm kidding.
You know, when we talk about other percussionists, and he's talking about tone, that's the most inspiring thing, right? Whether it's Mongo, Puente, Francisco, they all had a unique sound of their own, and some beat you right away. You know, nobody ever talks about Jack Costanza,
No.
you know, but he was like the cheetah bongo player, you know, next to Armando, and he had a great sound as well. But also, Mike, you also had that great tone too, man. It must have carried over. But I gotta say, man, you took congas almost another direction, man. Like, it's not huaracha, and it's not rumba, and it's not guaguancó for real, you know, and it's not 2/3, it's not 3/2.
Right.
You really put a street slant on conga playing, which was it kind of bridged Afro-Cuban with the music of Latin rock, and thank you so much.
You're welcome,
Thank you.
sir.
And blues. And I really found that interesting, man. I really did. You know, I listened to those records and how you played those parts, and it's still to this day. It's like it still holds its own.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, and we'll get to this another time. How me and Carlos met. That whole thing with Danny Harrow and La Palma and Gus and whatnot, and then the whole thing of Marcus Malone coming into the band later. I got kicked out of the band, and then Marcus got in some trouble. I happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Okay.
Got back into the band. But of that style, I got to tell you, me and Carlos used to go to the Fillmore a lot.
Okay.
And we snuck in there one time. He got caught. I didn't. By Bill, there's a picture of that somewhere of how Bill Graham met me. And we were into Paul Butterfield, man. Carlos was into the blues, man. He was a rhythm guitar player, man. And his tone was like no other that I had ever heard, man.
For still to this day.
And once Paul Butterfield came out with East West, game over. Game over. There was no bridge. There was no intro. There was no outro. These guys just jam. And I remember hearing the harmonica and which way it went and stuff, and it was different. And I thought, you know what? I want to play to this, man. I want to play to this, because there were so many bands back then, yeah. And again, man, you go back to the 4/4, and it worked in the blues. It worked in a shuffle. You played a 6/8. It worked in a 6/8 if you did the blues, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of my influence comes from blues, of all the other people I listened to also. So I was kind of like street savvy of just what I knew. I kind of taught myself.
Yeah.
I didn't. I mean, I had people that gave me a lesson or two for 20 minutes, and I couldn't do it. This thing,
the heel toe. Yeah.
That was so hard for me to do. And it was just this wrist thing, and I went, you know what, man? I just learned something. I got to keep doing that every day. I teach my students that, and they go like, oh, how do I do that? And you know this, as a trap drummer yourself, it's all in the wrist, man.
It's all in the wrist, yeah.
Everything is wrist.
You got to practice. You just got to practice.
Yeah.
You just got to practice.
There's no way around it.
Some people might come easier, and it might be harder for others, but you got to practice. That's for sure.
And a lot of that was just self-taught. Self-taught by inspirations of the Cal Jader Band, the Chico Hamiltons, the Bill Fitches, the Victor Pantojas. It just goes down the line, and it's just what you have to know. Something has to bite you.
Yeah, that's the word.
Something's
That's the
got to
word.
bite you, man.
That's the word.
Yeah, and it's got to taste right. All of a sudden, you go like, whoa,
that's what I
man.
want to do. That's what I want to be.
Right.
That's what it turns into.
Yeah.
And you grow up, and your experiences are immense. I know they are.
Right.
I know you since I was a kid.
Yeah.
You joined the band. You're in the band Santana. You got a band, and you're playing clubs before, and then all of a sudden you get Woodstock.
Right.
And everybody knows about Woodstock, Michael.
Right. Right.
The largest concert ever, movie, unbelievable. But I want to know what it felt to you inside. What were you thinking, looking out there and seeing all those people, man? You've been from the Sunnydale projects, going to the other projects, going to the Mission District.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, you're in a dairy farm
Right. Right.
in Upper Woodstock.
Right. Right.
You guys flew in, right?
In a helicopter, military helicopter,
Right,
with no doors.
right. And you're there with Sly and the Family Stone, Jimi Hendrix, all the bands that you can possibly get in the ring with.
Right. Right.
And you guys absolutely steal the show.
Well,
I want to know what went through Mike Carabello's head. What were you feeling?
First of all, it's a word called feeling, but I remember when I went to Horseman, the music teacher, who I wasn't too crazy about, because he was a horn teacher. I wanted to play drums, and couldn't play drums because he never taught that, more or less. But I remember him saying a thing, when you go and you play in front of an audience, do not look at the audience. Do not look at the audience. Look at the last person in the audience, right? So Woodstock is like
Far. Yeah.
last person is way, way out there, right? And when Santana played and when we used to practice, we would practice with one another. Like if you're playing catch, man,
Wow.
So there was
that's good.
there was no such thing about, I'm going to be the guy out in front, stuff like that. We were all scared. Just didn't say it to one another, But we were a team. So when we got up there, and the word had spread around with the other bands, like the Jefferson Airplane, and everybody knew who we were from the San Francisco thing.
Everyone started getting conga players.
Yes, Jimi Hendrix, one of them,
Yeah.
right?
Kind of, yeah.
and all of a sudden, so I kind of opened that door for that. I will say
Well, I think
I'm
you all did.
responsible. Yeah,
Yeah.
we all did. But it's so funny to come back to that because we were all kind of scared, but we always played to one another. So when we were
Yeah, I
playing,
like that.
if you look at the footage, man, there's none of us are looking out in the audience. None of us.
Yeah, you guys always look at each other.
We looked at each other. We were a team. And then there was, and this is so funny, and this is my heritage, and I have to say this. There was kids in the audience that were Puerto Rican, that were from the Bronx and Lower East Side, that saw this band up there with conga drums and going, what's this? And then we have timbales, which nobody even knows from the West Coast what they were,
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just a magical moment that we were so scared that it kind of was just, okay, let's go do it.
So scared.
Let's just go do it. Let's
Sure.
go do it.
Yeah, I mean, that makes
Let's
sense.
just go do it. But never looked out in the audience, man. Never just went, oh man,
Yeah.
But
And all of you were very young.
yeah, we were all in our 20s. Some of us were 17 still. Michael was young. Michael Streets was
Yeah.
young. But again, we had this thing about being a team, and the word finally got around after Woodstock. You don't want to come on after these guys. And I could tell you some other stories that go along
It's
with
true
that.
to this day.
It's true to this day, and you're in the
You
band
were
now.
hard to follow.
Yeah, man, it's like, again, it goes back to sports. We don't lose.
Yeah, no, it's a team.
It's a team effort, you
Yeah.
know. So that's what it felt like. So it wasn't no big,
Just
and we had
amazing.
no idea.
I mean,
that
were you excited? Were you flame on?
yeah, it's just we just played to one another, and
Yeah.
look at the footage, and you could see it, man. Carlos has got his back turned, man, and
Well, because I can remember the
All this
first
stuff.
show I had with Carlos.
yeah,
And everything that I've ever dreamed about and everything that I ever wanted came to the forefront.
right,
Every emotion, everything that my mom and dad wanted to be,
right,
it came out. And it was so hard for me not to break down.
yeah, I bet,
And till this day, I'm in awe
Right.
You know, especially when we played at the Garden.
Right.
And I was still in
2 years
awe.
ago.
You know, I'm still
2
a
years
big
ago.
fan of y'all. You know, huge. You know.
Well,
And
it's the same thing when we were out. Was it 2 years ago when I went out
Yeah.
on tour with you guys and we played Woodstock again?
Yeah, that's right.
Different
Yeah, of course.
thing.
Yeah, it's a different
but
thing.
man,
It's a different thing.
It's a yeah, it's just a magical experience. I can't put a word on it, man. You know, it's just like I guess a boxer going into a ring. It's like bases loaded, man. There's 2 outs, and you're down. You know, it's a tie game, and you go up to bat
Yeah.
and just hit the ball.
Right. Yeah.
So it was just one of those things that we knocked it out of the park, man.
But yeah, I mean, the photos don't lie. They're all published out there.
And you see a lot of us like this.
Yeah,
We're
or
playing
looking
to one
down at the
another,
instruments, or
not ever looking out in the audience. So it was like it was a shock to get back to the question. It was a shock, but we did it.
Well, good. I mean, that's what It was one of the things that changed the world, right?
Yeah, and Bill Graham was very supportive. Again, you have to remember, Bill Graham comes from a Latin background.
That's right.
You know, being Jewish like he is, but he was going to the Palladium.
Well, he was dancing to Tito Puente, Machito, and all those guys. Of course.
So to see us come up with this thing, there's a Nicaraguan, there's a Mexican, there's a Puerto Rican, there's a black guy, and there's 2 white guys.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
What are they going to play? You know?
Watch this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Just taking it to another place.
Right, taking it to another level.
And I don't think we actually were just meant to do that. It's just that we went, hey, let's just do what we hear. So there was a lot of different influence from every different player.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I got to say, man, an amazing career. And what are you doing now?
I'm teaching. I live in Boston, and I have a recording studio and writing songs, putting a band together, getting ready to do a CD that you're part of, and a lot of teaching. And I teach little kids, and I teach older seniors how to play. I teach mom and sons, and fathers and daughters how to play, because it's a bonding. It's a bonding for them to get together, like playing catch or going to the ballet with your daughter. Kind of thing. And here's something we could do. And when I teach, I just try to teach the basics. And the basic thing, again, is tone. It's not about being fancy and learning how to solo. And I guess, and you know this as a teacher yourself. When somebody doesn't practice, you know exactly they didn't practice.
That's right.
Yeah. So.
But it's okay though. I mean, it's just that it hasn't resonated yet.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. Practicing is very, very frustrating, because you have to visit yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe physically or spiritually you're not in the mood.
Right.
And you're not there quite yet there. And then one day you're gonna have a practice that doors are gonna open up. And it's all gonna make sense.
Right.
And
That's what
it's
happens.
all gonna be very clear.
Yeah.
It's like you tasting the real taste of the food.
Yeah. And it comes to you.
Yeah, it comes to you.
You don't chase it.
Yeah.
You don't chase it. And I tell a lot of my students, like one day it'll click in. Don't think about, whatever. But back in the day when we were doing it, we were able to practice to records. I mean, every Temptation album.
I did the same, I did the same thing.
And now kids or students don't practice
Yeah.
to CDs or streaming or whatever. They just rather do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
But it's a different time, and it's a different time for our instrument also.
Yeah. I knew all of Chipito's solos. And
Yeah.
I used to
And my
play.
solos.
Yeah, and your solos, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Michael, I can't tell you what an honor it is to have you here in the studio, and I got to tell you this, and I mean this. Thank you for being in my life.
Oh, thank you for being in my life. You've been a big inspiration to me also, Papa.
Yeah, I love you, man. Thank you for being on the show, man.
Thank you.
What a true honor, man.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and you're welcome anytime on the Backstage Show.
All right, we'd be glad to do it again and talk about some other
And we'll
stuff.
see you backstage. But before we go, this is the segment of the Karl Perazzo Secrets. Ding, 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 ding. Secrets that I only know of Mike Carabello. I got to tell you this. So
You could tell.
I
You could
wasn't.
tell him the one about the.
Yeah, I'm going to
Golden
tell you.
Gate
Don't you worry about what I'm going to tell him. This is my secret. So I'm too young to drive. Mike used to pick me up for rehearsals. He'd drive all the way across the bridge from Marin, come into the city, pick me up, and then we go back over the Golden Gate Bridge. And the Golden Gate Bridge is a 2-lane. If you're not familiar with San Francisco, it's 2 lanes of traffic. 2 lanes on one side going this way, 2 lanes going that way. So we're going across. We're in the middle of the bridge, and Michael makes a U-turn on the bridge, telling me he forgot his laundry. And it turns out that you did that with Carlos as well.
I forgot my pick.
I forgot his Afro pick. And I just think that's the innocence of Mike Carabello, man.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, I got to do this, and you're making a U-turn on the Golden Gate Bridge. I found that to be like.
Well, it's so funny because Carlos says to this day, he said, that's the reason why I had to learn how to drive.
yeah, you're the
He
inspiration.
wouldn't have to be with me all the time.
Well, I had to buy new underwear, but man, because I don't know how we did it. And they used to have these plastic dividers that look like metal, and I say, hey, Michael, are these
Metal.
plastic or metal? And you go, no, they're plastic. Watch. Turns the car, and they're shooting like rockets on the bridge. Oh, what a time to grow up, man. Michael,
Yeah.
thank you for all the
You're
inspiration,
welcome,
man.
sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And,
We got more to do.
Yeah, sure.
We're working
sure.
together
Yeah.
now, and we've done some great stuff.
And
on percussion.
if we can, just do maybe a little jamming.
Sure.
Oh, man, thank you, man. Thank
You're
you, thank you,
welcome.
thank you, thank you.
Sure.
Well, we're going to take a little pause for the cause. Thank you for joining us on the TBS show here on the Music Channel. Don't forget, hit the like button, subscribe, and just tell us what you think. Send your comments below, and thank you. Be back. Well, thank you for joining us here on the TBS show. We're here with Mike Carabello, one of the masters, and thank you for allowing us to jam a little bit. We're just gonna bring it back, man. Real simple. We're gonna play, with no structure. We just want to create tone, resonance, and vibration. But before we get started, I know Michael, outside of recording with Carlos, I know you recorded with the Rolling Stones too. And were you on the album Tattoo You?
Correct. I played on Start Me Up. Been waiting on a friend. And Heavenly.
Wow, those are some big tunes, man.
Yeah.
Start me up.
Yeah, it's it was an honor because I remember going there to the studio. Mick calling up. I was staying with Michael Shreves. Mick calling up and saying, "Hey, you think you could come down?" And I wanted to say, "I don't know. I have to think about it." But I had met Mick Jagger when we were with Santana and we played in Paris.
Okay.
And didn't keep a friendship up or whatever. But anyway, he calls and I got to carry again being a conga player, you have to remember, you got to carry these big, heavy puppies, man. And I remember walking 5 blocks, man, with 3 congas, man. Got one, put it on the block, nobody could steal it, and go across the street and whatnot. But I remember getting there and them asking me, and I was just like, and I see Keith Richards walk in the room,
Wow.
like one of my heroes,
Yeah,
man.
man. So
Charlie
you can't
Watts
get no
walks
better
in the
than
room, another one of my heroes,
Yeah.
right? And the next day, then we recorded that, and I remember Mick telling me, he says, can you play this kind of thing? And it's so funny because the way they hear, they're just masters at what they do.
Yeah, sure.
And again, it's the blues.
That's right, it's the blues, yeah.
It's the blues.
There's
It always
no
goes
doubt,
back to the blues.
Yeah.
And, he had me try some stuff and, whatever. And I says, can we try something the way I want to do it? And, you don't ask the Rolling Stones,
Right,
can I
right,
play my
yeah,
own stuff,
yeah.
right? And he said, sure. And those were the tracks that went on those 3 tracks, man.
Oh, that's great, man.
Very, very honored to play with one of the greatest rock and roll bands ever.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Must say, I think I'm the only San Francisco conguero that's played with the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, but yeah. That's that's fair to say. You know, and man, I love that. I love those stories, man, because there's a part of history, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of history, you know, I grew up playing in Dolores Park. Michael grew up playing in Aquatic Park, and also in Dolores Park. I think you played all the parks.
Pursuit Park.
And there, it was no structure. It was just a kind of open jam, and that's what I want to do. I want to kind of create that hot sunny day, Sunday afternoon. You know, just drumming, man, just vibes. You know.
Just hanging.
Yeah, just hanging,
Just
man.
hanging, man. Yeah.
So, you ready, Gramp?
I'm ready, Pop.
Ready?
man.
Oh, man.
Could we dance or what?
Mike Carabello. Mike Carabello right there,
All
man.
right, right. Thank you.
That's where it starts, right there. The street slant.